Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Chats with Children. I hope you're safe and well. Today's Chats with Children is part of my ongoing series as we're coming to the end of the year, where we are actually looking back at 2020 and looking forward to 2021. And I get to catch up with some of the people I've interviewed this year. And I'm delighted to be joined by Martin Lush, who is, and I always have to check this with such a long job title, Global VP for NSF Health Sciences, Pharmaceutical, Biotech, Medical Devices. So, Martin, lovely to see you again. How are you?
And you, Rizwan, good morning.
Well, last time we spoke actually was in June this year, and a lot has happened since June. It's been obviously quite a difficult and interesting year in so many ways. And obviously, I'm delighted that you've joined me to look back at the year and actually look ahead and get your thoughts on that. But before we do that, for those who are not familiar with NSF and you and your background, perhaps you could give people a quick overview of NSF and your background as well.
So NSF is a not-for-profit foundation, mission to improve global health. So this has been a big year for us. So I have colleagues working in food, I have colleagues working in water, and obviously I'm responsible for our health sciences, which is pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and dietary supplements. So, you know, I've been in and around the healthcare industry, Rizwan, for 40 years. And what listeners won't know, just before we started this podcast, Rizwan said, Martin, you're looking really, really tired. Rizwan, I've been in this industry for 40 years. And this is the toughest, most challenging year I've ever had.
Well, that segues quite nicely into my very first question, because how would you describe 2020 in as few words as possible?
I think there are a number of words I would use to describe 2020, Rizwan. Transformational. And I think for everybody listening to this, you just got to look at what you individually have transformed and done differently this year that you've never even thought possible. So number one, transformational. Number two, educational. Boy, have we learned so much. I'm a technophobe, but hey, when it comes to Zoom and other things, brilliant now. So there's stuff that we've all learned so much more and faster than we would never ever done before. For me, it's been a wake-up year. And we'll come back to that when we start looking at next year, because this has been a wake-up year for our industry. It's been a wake-up year for our world. And we have to make sure that, you know, the politicians are using that phrase, build back better. We've got to make sure that we do build back better, because we can't go back to what we used to do. And I think the last word I would use, this one, is that it's been painful, but in a positive way. What I mean by that is that I'm a firm believer that you grow fastest when you're outside your comfort zone. And I've been outside my comfort zone big time this year. And I think all of us have. But you know, you only grow when you have time to recover. And I think a lot of us haven't had that recovery time this year. And when we go through, you know, our thoughts for next year, I have some really important questions for people over Christmas, over the holiday period, because this is our opportunity to think, to reflect, to recover, and to come back ready for next year, which is going to be even more challenging. So right. Transformational, educational, it's a wake-up call, and it's painful, but in a good way, providing we reflect and learn.
Right. Well, let's touch on the last bit we talked about, the positives you could get out of it. So from a personal point of view, a professional industry point of view, a business point of view, what do you think are the positives we can take out of this year?
You know, personally, you know, I've done things that I never have even thought possible. You know, I've worked, and this applies to everybody on this call and listening to this, you know, yourself included. We've worked at a level of intensity that we've never ever thought possible. There's one of the many books on the back here is a book written by a Navy SEAL, and they have the 40% rule, which is basically saying, when you think you are done, when you think you can go no further, you've still got 40% in the tank. And we've all proven it, you know, and we need to understand that. So next year, when we're faced with even greater challenges, as well as the opportunities, when we're on our knees, just remember you've got 40% of it.
Right.
So, you know, for me, it's been that, and I think that applies to everybody on this call. Professionally, it's really reminded me of the why, the reason why I'm in healthcare. You know, I spent 10 years in the health service. I spent a lot of my informative time at AstraZeneca, then into David Begg Associates, then into NSF. So my career path has always been healthcare related. You know, our mission at Health Sciences and NSF is to improve global health. And it's really reminded me of why we all do this. You know, it's not the paycheck at the end of the day, it's about the difference we make. And boy, in the middle of a crisis, everybody needs a really strong why. And I think phenomenal, you know, what the pharmaceutical industry has done in the way it's responded to developing vaccines in a safe and effective way. And that's a really important message over a very short period of time. But now we've got the most challenging mile to go and the most challenging inch to go. That is going from vaccines to vaccination. And that is going to be, you know, the big challenge. So personally, it's about what we've all achieved, that 40% rule. Professionally, I think it's reminded us all about the why, and everybody, and it's re-emphasized the reason everybody needs a strong why.
Sure. Okay. And moving on and sort of touching on 2021 as well now, what learnings do you think we have managed to get from this year that we're going to carry over into 2021 and onwards?
I think the learnings is first and foremost the reality of the volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous world that is now the new norm. You know, you just did a session with my colleague John Johnson, and John and I, you know, always use this term VUCA as the new norm. And it's, for me, it's the most exciting time to be in the pharmaceutical pharma industry, medical device industry, and healthcare in general, because the industry from now on is going to be completely transformed.
Can I stop you for 1 second? What do you mean by VUCA? For those people who haven't seen watched John's video, perhaps you can explain what VUCA actually is, though.
I mean, VUCA actually was a term developed by the American military. You know, they went into Iraq and Afghanistan with an old model of how to do battle, realizing that actually this was a completely different landscape, a completely different enemy that required a completely different approach. And they actually coined the term VUCA, volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous. That's the world we operate in. Right. Get used to it. That's the reality. So the agility, the ability to pivot, greater investment in our people, simplification of our systems, the old ways of working. It goes back to what I said earlier. You know, this is a wake-up call for our industry. You know, we can do rolling reviews for vaccines. Why can't we do rolling reviews for other medicines? You know, is it really acceptable to have, you know, new chemical entities coming through that take 15, 16 years at a cost of $1.2 billion with 90% attrition rate in this VUCA world? Answer, no, it is not acceptable. So let's change it. Let's not go back to the old ways of working. So for me, the great opportunity going forward is recognizing, and this comes back to what we were saying earlier, Rizwan, about build back better. Let's not go back to the old bureaucracies, the complex documentation systems, the hierarchies. We've got to simplify, speed up decision making, and this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to do that across the product life cycle.
Right. So looking ahead now to 2021, what do you see the year will bring for us? And, what 3 things, or maybe more than that, you think are going to be some of the trends that people need to be looking out for?
I think, I'm a great lover of the Stockdale paradox. We haven't got time to go into that. But, the Stockdale paradox basically says, look, face reality, the brutal facts, and then make sure you plan accordingly and pursue that plan with optimism that you will prevail. So starting with those brutal facts, because there's lots of headlines that create or paint this, in my view, over-optimistic. I'm not being negative here. I'm just painting the reality. And this has been a tough year, but it's a warm-up for the main event, which is next year. We know that vaccines will have little effect for most people. You were saying, Rizwan, that your mum and dad have been vaccinated. Great, and that's how it should be. But for the likes of you and I, it's some way down, and that's
sure.
how it should be. I was reading an article this morning that no more than 1 in 4 will be vaccinated by early 2022. So number one, it's recognizing that, look, there is hope, there is light at the end of the tunnel, but we have a long way to go. And in making sure that we go from vaccines to vaccination, which is one of the biggest logistical challenges we will solve. We will get there, but we will make mistakes in that process, but we will get there. Recognizing that we will have a third and possibly a fourth wave of COVID. So that's and also recognizing that in the pharmaceutical industry, the challenges that we will face will be chronic shortage of drugs. We will have supply chain difficulties. We know there's going to be a surge in counterfeits. We know, we're going to come under increasing pressures for price shortages. And so that list goes on. So that's the reality. But knowing that if that is reality, how will we prevail? And there are significant challenges and opportunities, providing we tackle it from a completely different angle by asking us, all of us, the questions over this holiday period. And very few of us, Rizwan, have had thinking time. If there's been one thing in short supply year, speaking personally, it's been thinking time. So over the holiday period, we have that opportunity to think. And I think questions are a really powerful way of moving our thinking, because one thing is for sure, is that what we did last year in many aspects of our personal and professional lives are not going to be good enough for the challenges that we face in 2021 and beyond. So I've actually listed 5 questions
Right.
to be asking myself, Rizwan, over Christmas, over the holiday period, to think about what am I going to do differently, personally and professionally, because I don't think what I've done this year is going to be, it's a learning exercise, it's a learning process. What am I going to do differently next year? So 5 questions. And what am I would, people listening to these are 5 questions for me, but I want to know what your 5 questions are as well. So one of my questions that I'm going to be thinking about to, reflect on and to answer is, what am I going to do personally in 2021 that is going to be different? What new habits am I going to create? What new routines are going to be fit for purpose? And also, what new mental models and frames of reference am I going to use to get me through next year? I was talking to one of my mentors, I don't know, October, November, basically saying, look, I'm really struggling. There's lots of pressure. Everybody is under pressure. And my mentor completely shifted my frame of reference by saying, Martin, what are you worried about? That's a privilege. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, pressure's a privilege. You're in your position. You've worked hard to get that pressure. What are you worried about? It's a privilege. Now that kind of shifted my frame of reference considerably. So number one for me is thinking about the new habits that I've got to adopt, the new routines I have to follow, and the new mental models that I need to adopt.
Right.
Number 2 is, how am I going to improve as a leader? Next year is going to present itself with, incredible challenges. How am I going to ensure that the part of the organization that I'm responsible for maintains and strengthens its culture? How am I going to ensure that I communicate better and more efficiently with the team who needs it more than ever before? How am I going to listen more? How am I going to focus more on coaching, mentoring and support to give my team the skills to enable them to do that for others who are looking to themselves for support? And really for me, it's how do I create a culture and in an environment that is going to be even more challenging next year, Rizwan, than this year, that enables, it's what I call the breakthrough culture. Next year is about breakthrough. So how can I create an environment where rules are challenged, where assumptions are abandoned? Because this is a pivotal year for us, for everybody in healthcare next year. So how do I, as a leader, create that culture that is supportive at the same time as innovative? Number 3 question that I'm asking, my third question, is how am I going to refine and improve the core skills that I'm going to need and my people will need, the organization will need to manage the VUCA reality that we were talking about.
Sure.
And none of these are new, Rizwan, and we'll attach some links to material that I've written and spoken about. So none of these are new, but I know for sure that we've got, as an organization and as an industry, improved decision-making under pressure. We've got to rethink completely our approach to risk management, from risk aversion to more intelligent risk management and risk-based decision making. We've got to really completely rethink our approach to problem solving, because we're going to have lots. We've got to completely rethink our approach to change management so it's faster and says no than it more frequently than it's yes. We've got to completely rethink our approach to crisis management. And for all of those, because those are the areas where I feel that as an organization and as individuals, we need to be so much better, so much faster, so much more efficient. Number 4, Rizwan, is the question is, how do I stay really externally focused? In a crisis, next year is an extension of the COVID crisis with an acceleration in some areas. There's always a tendency to think inwardly, internally, and you kind of ignore the external signals. So for me, it's a question of how do I look after my business, look after my people as a priority, but be aware of what is happening on the outside. Importantly, listening to clients who are also facing different challenges.
Sure.
How do I keep an eye on the political, social, economic picture? What is happening in technology? Because, telemedicine, digital medicine is going to make have far greater impact on our business than ever before. And importantly, organizations can't be effective if they don't sense and interpret and act upon signals, often weak signals, from the periphery of their immediate focus. In other words, you've got to really keep focused on the external, not on the internal. But how am I going to do that? And how are we as a business going to do that? And the 5th one, Rizwan, is, and this is a challenge that I set everybody on this call, how do we learn our way through this? There is light at the end of the tunnel. We've been here before and we will get through this, but it's going to be doing different things, which means learning quicker and faster. So what books am I going to read? What podcasts are you and I going to do? What networks are we going to create outside the pharma industry? So for me, the questions that I'm asking myself to reflect on over this holiday period: what am I going to do personally different? How am I going to lead differently? How am I going to refine those key skills that really need to be taken from a 3 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10? How am I going to keep my external focus? I'm aware of those changes. And finally, how am I going to learn and pass on my knowledge? And this is what I implore everybody to do. We will get through this if we support each other in that process. So not only what am I going to learn that is different, what is on my reading list, what is on my podcast list, but importantly, how am I going to share that with the wider community inside NSF and outside as well?
That's really interesting. And also, it's interesting because, if I think of 2020, I think of collaboration as being one of the big buzzwords as well. And what you're talking about there in terms of looking ahead is obviously yourself, what you're doing, but also then opening up to working closer with other people and sharing ideas as well, aren't you, in terms of like
Correct.
opening up networks and talking about.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's really interesting. And you mentioned that obviously you've got some notes. We'll put some links up above the video so people can get that information. I know you also read a lot. So are there any, have you got a book list that you can recommend to people out there if they want to sort of get some additional information and some
Absolutely. Yeah. And, my challenge is actually reducing it to a level. But what I will do, if anybody's interested in what is on my reading list for next year, just drop me a note, and applies to any more information that anybody wants. I'll send them my reading lists are very kind of personal, but I'm more than happy to discuss and share that list, because the knowledge is out there. I always joke that, look, the answers are there. Amazon has them, bookstore, not just Amazon.
Yeah, all good book providers. Yeah,
all good book providers.
So finally, as we are coming to the end of the year, and everyone does a little Christmas message anywhere at this time of year to their staff, their employees, to their customers, and so on, what would be the message you'd give to those people watching this video now? Your sort of parting message to everybody.
A parting message, Rizwan, would be, please use this as an opportunity as we go into the holiday period, just to take a breath, step back, and give yourself a big pat on the back, everyone, because what everybody has done this year, I think is incredible. So just take we just don't do that often enough, to take a step back and go, we always look at what we haven't done and what we didn't do too well, rather than say, hang on a minute, just look at what you've done. It's been an incredible year. Applaud yourself, number one. Number two, what I'd say is the term Build Back Better. I truly believe that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for us in healthcare to leave our mark. Healthcare is the number one priority globally now. Healthcare systems globally are broken, okay? They will be fixed because they have to be fixed. So for us in the healthcare community, whether you're in medical devices, dietary supplements, pharmaceuticals, doesn't matter what area, everyone has a role to play to build back better. Let's not waste this opportunity. Doesn't matter how tiny your contribution is, whether it's just simplifying an SOP through to re-engineering your global strategy. Do not waste this opportunity. We have to be, each one of us, committed to creating a healthcare system that is more affordable, more readily available to every member of our community, rich and poor, to be faster and cheaper, to be more sustainable. The pharmaceutical industry, I find this fascinating. The pharma industry has saved, through its development of vaccines and antivirals, saved thousands, tens of millions of lives. And yet it contributes 20% more carbon emissions than the auto industry. We've got to fix that. So my message to people is, take time to reflect, give yourself a pat on the back, because boy, do you deserve it, and your partners. Think about what you're going to do next year to build back better, because this is an opportunity that none of us can waste. These opportunities don't come round much, if at all, in a lifetime. And the third one I'd say to people, Rizwan, is please send me your questions. You know, I've shared with you my questions. These questions are attempting to force me into a different way of thinking. So share your questions with me, because next year is going to require different thinking at a different level in order to make it a pivotal year for healthcare, whether you're in pharmaceuticals, medical devices, or any aspect.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you very much for that, Martin. Well said. And as Martin said, if you've got your own questions that you'd like to share, Martin, please put them in the comments below, because we'd love to see them. And also, if you agree or disagree with Martin on anything he said, then again, put them below the comments. We'd love to do it, because debate is always a good thing, and it's always to get everyone's views in terms of what they're thinking.
Just one last point on that. You know, that is a really, really important point, Rizwan, is that let's kick groupthink into the long grass. You know, next year is about constructive disagreement, because when you have that disagreement, you explore those differences of opinion and you get to a better solution. So next year also has to be more about constructive, progressive disagreement.
I agree 100%. I think it's always good to get another person's point of view as well. So, Martin, all that's left for me to say is thank you very much for taking the time out. It's always interesting listening to your views and hearing what you have to say. So thank you again very much.
Thank you,
I wish you, your family, everybody at NSF a wonderful festive break and a fantastic start to 2021. And I hope you have a fantastic year, regardless of all the challenges. I'm sure you will do.
It will be.
And to everyone watching, I really hope you found that useful. As I said, if you've got any questions for Martin, there's a lot there that we've just covered. So feel free to put comments below. We'd love to hear from you and get your own views, what you think of 2020, what you think of 2021, what it's going to be, and obviously what questions that you're going to ask yourself over the Christmas period. Or are you going to ask? Maybe you think, no, you don't need to ask any questions. You're quite happy where things are, so that's fine as well. So, but regardless, I wish you all a wonderful festive break as well. And until next time, as always, stay well and stay safe. Bye-bye.